Welcome to Inner Peace Arts Unscripted. I'm your host, James Coleman. Inner Peace Artists. Inner Peace Arts is the intersection between personal development, spirituality, and social change. Today I'm in an urban environment. Figured it'd be a good time to change up and say that you can do Inner Peace Arts anywhere, not just in under birds and trees and grass, but where there's concrete and noise and signs and all that kind of stuff. So today I'm going to be sharing on what I imagine you are to me. And this is really, it's related to personal power. It's related to objectivity. It's related to the primary nature and the power of imagination. And so let's just get into it. The statement, what I imagine you are to me is what you are to me, sets up my treatment of you. So if I imagine you as friend, I can treat you as friend. If I imagine you as enemy, I treat you as enemy. And imagination accesses scripts, cultural learnings, presuppositions, attitudes, beliefs, and mobilizes them and focuses them into actions that you eventually take. So what does this mean? How is it related to objectivity? Well, if I see you as object, you are object to me. If I see you as something more than object, then you are more than object to me. But notice what I haven't said. I haven't said what you are, right? Which is very interesting. And I'm even thinking about that now. So I'm not saying what you are in reality. I'm saying what I imagine you to be. Because I'm talking about your imagination as the primary driver for your treatment of another. This can also be applied to self, right? Your imagination of self applies to treatment of self. But right now I'm using it to apply to other. And this is very powerful. Why is it powerful? It's powerful because it says that what you imagine determines how you act. And your action then is reflective of what you have imagined. So lots of religious perspectives will call people divine, and you should treat them as divine. And yet we find that in most religious traditions, most people who claim to be following them actually don't treat people as divine. They treat people according to the cultural system and the cultural scripts with which they grew up and adopted. And so let's just make that clear and very obvious so that we're not mixing up, this notion of the divine with what actually happens. What actually happens is whatever you're imagining that person is, that's what they are to you. That's the reality. That's the bottom line. That imagination may change from moment to moment. That imagination may change in certain situations. That imagination may change with who you are around, right? But it's still looking at you and your imagination as the driver, as that which is determining how you treat that other person. This essentially puts you in the driver's seat on how you are going to treat and deal with people. Notice I'm not telling you what to do, how to imagine others. I'm saying this is what is happening in your treatment of others. And we can get later on into, what is right or good and all that stuff with regard to imagination, or what to imagine. But the first step is actually recognizing that your imagination is doing this work, and that you are responsible, you are in control of, you can influence your imagination on how you think of that other person. Definitions play a part in the imagination, which I've mentioned before. And interestingly, what happens is when you enter into the presence of another person, their expressions of their imaginations of self come through, and you pick that up, and unless you are aware of it, you do not come to the understanding that they are influencing your imagination of them. And thus you could be reflecting their imagination back to themselves instead of your decided imagination on who they are and how you want to treat them. So that's the interactive piece that's involved in this imagination. And so we have two things. We have your imagination of the other person that decides what they are, decides your treatment of them, and your and their imagination of you coming through their expressions and your interpretations of their expressions, their energy, their presence. All of those things influence that treatment of that person. And of course, this is a vital thing to be aware of if you're recognizing that some of the things that you want, the materials that you want, are coming through not you, someone who is not you in this dual perspective, right? And we'll get into non-duality later, but there is a not you that is being interacted with because you are actually interacting with them. Now, your imagination of them can overcome this duality, in a sense, where you imagine a oneness with them and act according to that imagined oneness. And we know, for example, that when musicians get together and play together, their brain waves actually lock in synchronous. So your imagination of this person and your treatment of them can create a kind of locking brainwave experience such that they get to experience it as well. There's also this whole mirror-neuron thing, but I don't want to get too deep into that. The point is, your imagination of them makes them who they are to you. And this is a powerful notion, so that if your relationships and your relating to people is not as you want it to be, change your imagination about who they are to yourself. That's it. This has been James Coleman, Inner Peace Arts Unscripted, urban version. Check out the blog, innerpeacearts.wordpress.com. Email me at innerpeacearts@protonmail.com. Check out Facebook and Twitter at InnerPeaceArts1. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha shalom. In distinction, thanks be to stream, in stream, by stream.